Come listen now to The Public Square, the daily program from the American Policy Roundtable. I'm Wayne Shepherd here with Dave Zanotti, and along with our producer Alan C. Duncan, Melanie Elsey, and Rob Walgate, all at the microphone today. Now, recently, Dave, we had a discussion about the U.S. election system. Is it broken or not? And listeners can hear that program online, of course, at thepublicsquare.com or with the smartphone app. But let's continue that conversation, but kind of review the points that we made there real quick.
Well, we started off asking the question, and then we got to the place where the conclusion. And we wanted to keep the question on the table for as long as we could to present evidence that is now new evidence that's upon us in this election season that intimates that what we've been watching now for a number of years, which is someone tearing apart at the seams on our election system and the gaps that those tears have created, I believe now we're at the place where this election process could prove that we have broken this.
Yeah.
We've pulled it in so many directions that we cannot get an election performed, counted accurately, and in a timely fashion. And so that what we're actually doing is looking not just foolish to one another, but foolish to the world. I mean, we have the kind of space travel that we have. We have the sort of technologies that we have, but we can't do what we used to do prior to cell phones, prior to electronic algorithms, and all the digital things that we're doing. Wait a second. Something's broken here. And I think it's kind of one of these things where it's been death by multiple paper cuts. We've pulled here, we've pulled there, we've pulled here, we've pulled there. We've let inefficiencies come in, but we've also opened the door for bad actors. Now, some of them you can't catch because election laws are tricky. They have a time clock set up with them. And if you can't catch someone who does the wrong thing in time, there's no real potential to prosecute them because it's after the fact. And sometimes you can go back, but a lot of times you can't. You just can't get it done. So we've got a problem, Wayne, and I think what we're about to find out is how broken the system is.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to recover all the points we made earlier. That program is online, of course, but we did identify all the non-paper means of voting as being one of the leaky seams. The non-citizens that are on the voting rolls is a leaky seam, and the few states that allow a distribution of electoral college votes other than the whole state voting as one. Those are some of the things we talked about.
Yeah, and those are all different ways that you pulled the seams apart. They're not related, but when they all start functioning at the same time, you get kind of a snowball effect where, well, this could happen or that could happen or this could happen. And then you end up in a situation where Pennsylvania's telling us all that they're going to get their votes counted when they can count them. Because they got an internal feud between the Democrat senator or governor and a Republican legislature, so they didn't fix what 47 other states have fixed, which is if you're going to have this mountain. So if you're going to have a situation where you've got mail-in ballots in a 13 million population state, you're going to have a lot of mail. And if you can't figure out your political squabble so you can't start counting it earlier like 47 other states are doing it or 43 other states are doing it, you're going to end up holding up the whole nation. You know what? Pennsylvania is basically saying, tough for you. Okay.
Shouldn't they be embarrassed?
Wait for it.
I feel that should almost be embarrassing that they can't get along well enough to get the ballots counted.
And the they is the state legislature because it's in their hands.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, but
the question is, would this governor veto it again?
Yeah, and the governor.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. So this is where you've got this conflict. And so this is what happens when you start to pull on the seams. You create the window for bad activities and, in some cases, bad players. Now, not everyone is a bad player, but there's some of them out there.
Yep.
And there's a lot of power and a lot of money on the table here.
Yeah. One thing we did not mention, let's continue this conversation, but one thing we did not mention last time is ivoters.com is a great resource that Rob, you've been working on hard now for years. And Dave, you started this years ago.
Well, that's one that actually works, right, Rob? On time.
It does. iVoters.com. It's a way to gather information, nonpartisan information, not telling you who to vote for or how to vote, just providing you a resource so you can do your homework. I remember when I told this story the other day. I remember when a dear friend...
I remember when you weren't old enough to tell stories.
Welcome to the club, Rob.
A dear friend of the organization asked us to travel to their business to show people at their company how it works. People were on video how it works. I'm sitting in a boardroom, and we put the site. It was up and ready to go. Went on the back end, and I had this person's home address. I had business address. I had all these addresses that I tried, tested, and I knew they worked. I was ready to roll to show what we were doing at ivoters.com. And I pulled up the site, and I looked down, and I said, well, we have some address. I'll use the one we're sitting at. And the gentleman said, who's such a sweet person, just the purest heart, he said, we have someone with us from South Dakota. Why don't we put theirs in? And I'm like, what? Like, wait a minute here. I've tested all these addresses. Don't be throwing this. And we serve a merciful God. And thankfully, all the work that we did, the address worked in South Dakota. But that may be the most nervous I've ever been in using ivoters.com in a room full of people.
And it is in 50 states, Wayne, and all it does is require that you put in your residential address. We don't even ask you to put your name in.
Should I be nervous about giving my address?
And it's not even the city; it's just the street address and the zip code, because you have to match up with what where the voter precincts are. They have to know what list of candidates belongs to you.
Yeah,
because
it's not something we track
for you. So you don't. Yeah, we don't give you here's 100 races in your state. Pick which ones are yours. No.
Yeah.
Here's the ballot you're going to be looking at.
That's what makes it so helpful. Sure. Yeah.
And it's important to also know that at this point in the election season, not all 50 states are in there because we're not through the primary process yet.
Yes, everyone will have access to it by the end of September.
Because there's still primaries
going on in the state legislative races, in some congressional races. Those are still happening.
Why do states do that to themselves? Let's have a primary in September and then come back and vote again in November.
I am not sure. It's made me bounce my head off the wall a few times because I would like to have this project done and wrapped up and everything put to bed on it, but it can't happen. I mean, Florida, August 20th.
Yeah. So now we've got a great section up right now on ballot issues because there are ballot issues going on all over. It's going to be extensive for all 50 states right now. We're looking at the states that have got the abortion ballot issues.
Yeah, there's a way on the homepage you can look, because that's a question we get a lot, is what states have issues on this topic, and abortion being one of the key ones that everyone's talking about. So you can go there, you can click in the 8 states that have abortion issues on the ballot. You can take a deep dive and take a look at what people will be voting on in those 8 states.
Yeah, and see the language that you're being asked to change a constitution or a statute for. It's a very, very important process. So we're in the nonpartisan, free, non-trackable, non-traceable, totally secure voting information business. We do not gather enough data to sell it if we wanted to, but we don't want to, and we never have. So we just, at the front end, there's the most minimal amount. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to give an email address to get through. The other thing about this site that's important is it's not our opinion, nor is it the opinion of any committees that we've put together to screen candidates based on a prior bias toward one position or the other. This is simply the data that the candidates are telling you about. It's their presentation of who they are. And then it also includes the rankings and endorsements of organizations from all over the country, left and right, so that you can actually see what those types of organizations are saying about this type of person. But you can also go on their website as well. You know, a lot of people make decisions for a lot of different reasons. They make decisions, and as you look through the bios and you study where they went to school, what kind of jobs they've had, what sort of articles have been written about them over the years, all those pieces and parts matter. And so you can get to that quickly in a one-stop shop environment. So we're not just complaining about the seams of the election system being torn apart. We're trying to help tighten this process by expanding knowledge and giving it away for free. And we've been doing that since 1998, Wayne.
And I know you don't intend it to be used this way, but I have to admit that I have put in some addresses around the country because I want to know what some of my friends are faced with in their elections. And if I want to support a legislator, let's say, in another state with I can't vote for them, but I can certainly support them with my prayers in other ways.
Sure, you can give them money, and you can find that information on that candidate website. Sure,
right.
I mean, made it really easy for you.
It gives you a peek around the country if you choose to use it that way.
And another way you can use it is to say, okay, I have got friends here, 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 and here. And, I'm telling them to go on. I'm not sure they are. Some of you, I'll be a little pushy. I'll go ahead and send them the link that connects to their ballot.
Sure.
All right. So now they've already, I went and clicked 3 ahead. I went and clicked 3 ahead of them. And now all they got to do is open it and look at it. So yeah, you can do that. And you can also just send the link out too.
Sometimes people need that nudge, don't they?
They need the nudge.
There's 2 features about this that I think we need to emphasize. One is the social media links. If a social media link exists, we will find it and we will have it on iVoters so that the chit chat that's going on between the candidate and the people who support them. And sometimes you can get some insight as to where they are on different issues that way. The other piece we've already mentioned, but I want to emphasize something else about it, is the PAC endorsement list. The PAC endorsement list is organizations. You can go in to find out who Planned Parenthood supports or who the pro-life Susan B. Anthony group supports. But you can also, on the candidate's website, most candidates will have their endorsements right on their website. And so you can go click and see who is funding or who they're taking money from. And that says a lot as well.
Such a helpful service. Again, ivoters.com. We'll be back with more on the Public Square.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square.
Have you had a chance to listen to the Kids on the Square episode, The Sit-In? Join us for discoveries.
Did you hear about the college students in Greensboro?
No.
4 black college students, just like me, sat at Woolworth's Diner.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't leave until they were served.
A behind-the-scenes look at a new book called The Front Steps.
And so I think that just kind of slamming those 2 emotions against each other in this book just makes it very interesting and powerful for me.
And laughs.
What do I do now? I guess I could go upstairs and read my library book again. Yeah, I'll go up a few and stare at the ceiling.
Kids on the Square aims to bless, encourage, and educate the next generation of American children by creating resources for families to connect and communicate in this digital era. So what are you waiting for? Grab a friend, share this episode with your family, and join us today at Kids on the Square.
Every day, 535 people are charged with representing all of us in Washington, D.C. They preside over the largest budget in the world. They hold the Constitution in their hands. They can help protect our liberties or look the other way. 535 people. We put them in office. Isn't it time that we hold them in our prayers? A public service message from the American Policy Roundtable. Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Again, thanks for listening to the Public Square. It means the world to us that you listen to us. This is a listener-supported program. I'm Wayne Shepherd with Dave Zanotti, Melanie Elsey, Rob Walgate, and Alan C. Duncan. Dave?
I want to return to the concept of chit-chat that we just heard before the break. It's the first time I've heard chit-chat and social media merged together with electoral politics. I think it's a powerful moment. And I hadn't thought about the idea that it's kind of interesting that by going onto a site like iVoters, which is ivoters.com, which is a one-stop shop, you can get all these different portals of information, but you can also check out what's going on with these candidates in social media. Now, I mean, if you were going to hire these people for a job, that's one of the first things that HR departments do is they check out the social media.
You better believe it, right?
That's exactly what we're doing when we elect somebody. We're hiring them. We should find out what's on their social media account, don't you think?
You know how many young people have lost scholarships?
Oh, boy.
At the collegiate level, both academic and athletic, because of what they put on social media? Do you know how many people in their late 40s right now, I'm raising my hand, are glad social media did not exist in the mid-90s?
Okay. And true confessions, this morning, in all the midst of preparation we were doing, I something caused me in one link to hit this about Twitter. Well, I ended up on Twitter's home site inviting me to join. Alan, you ready for this? We should probably play some very Bela Lugosi, deep, dark, mysterious music, a little thunder and a little wind.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
And, because now it's X and it's, the colors are different and it's like ominous and I'm there and I'm thinking back to Wayne, the first time you ever said to me, heaven knows how long ago it was, you said,
I said you should be on Twitter. Yeah.
You ever this sort of thing called Twitter? I said, what is Twitter? He said, it's limited in characters, and you would be perfect. You would light that site up. It would be so good for you.
Well, having grown up since making that recommendation, it's probably best that you've stayed off.
Well, but see, I was thinking of you this morning when I had the opportunity to push the button one more time.
Yeah, has he stayed off? Have you? Well, we haven't heard the end of the story yet.
Or is he lurking there? Yeah.
And I hit the X, but not the X to go to X. I got out of the page because I shuddered and thought to myself again, having the ability to say exactly the right thing at exactly the wrong moment is exactly why you don't want to be on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or text, excuse me.
When you scroll through Twitter, you've got to engage all the filters you have. I mean, every filter has to be active when you scroll through that feed.
There's one thing I have been enjoying about Twitter. First of all, the thing that I like is I like when people
do we owe Elon Musk an apology because we refuse to call it X? I mean, we're just doing this, right?
I don't know. Well, I think
he did a survey asking if they should change the name back. So
did he? What did come?
I don't know if there is.
I don't know. I don't
look it up.
It's still twitter.com. When you go to twitter.com,
it's going to be like 90% the 10, right? On the change.
I do think Twitter is a better name. I think it's better. We can't stop saying it.
X might be more realistic and the dark colors more appropriate, but Twitter with the happy bird.
There is one thing that I do like about it. That's what I was about to say. I like that now some people are using threads where you do one tweet and then it leads to another, to another, to another. So it essentially becomes more long format. They just link a bunch together and it becomes almost a longer article and they can embed pictures. There are a lot of people using it to talk about unknown historical facts or different archaeological sites. It can be used in a really, really cool way. So I like following some of those.
That reveals how deep you are and how shallow I am because I just like to follow the Cubs. So that's all I do. Follow
that's good too.
And my reasons for opting out or not is I really would like to know all that conversation, but I to the place where it's kind of like I don't know that I can handle any more content.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I can handle one more thing. I think I'm overwhelmed with the research responsibilities that we have. And if I go there, then it's going to be one more thing that I'm afraid will pull me off of the limited opportunities that I have as this. So I count on other people, though. I count on the rest of you to fill in the space. So thank you. But that's a unique situation. And again, we mean no harm to any of the people that are doing it. I'm kind of thrilled that Elon Musk is in the process because he's really shaking things up.
Well, he had that big conversation with Donald Trump recently. I don't know if anybody checked that out or tuned in and heard any of that.
I heard nobody watched that.
No. It wasn't like a billion people watched that. But I checked into some of it. It was just interesting that they had the platform to do it.
Well, and I remember RFK saying early in this electoral process that it could very well be that would be sites like social media sites and podcasting that would have a much more outsized influence on this election than everything else. I know one thing at the state level, the streaming online digital ads for your streaming video services are like forget about it. They're into the white heat of it now. So I don't know how much more they can handle. And the other day I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if we just, I think I said this on the air, wouldn't it be great if we could just boycott all of the, and that's a word we barely use around here. But since we're now allowed to use podcasts, I got to come up with another banned word. But so we
meat space.
Yeah, meat space. Yeah, there we go. Boycott these streaming services because as soon as they put the first negative political ad on, just boycott them. And then someone said to me, and they'll write you back and say, well, if you just pay us another $5 a month, you don't have to have any ads, you cheap so-and-so. So I realized that strategy wasn't going to work. So the point is, Wayne, there's one other point we want to get up on this conversation about elections. I know there are people who care passionately about America and about elections and about this republic, and I appreciate them very much, and I admire them. And they are, for the last however many days over this particular series we've been doing, or whether they're listening online, however they're gaining access to this data, they've been fuming and maybe even shouting at the radio saying, what about 2020? What about 2020? What about 2020? You know it was stolen. We know a lot about 2020. We knew a lot about 2020 before a lot of people knew about 2020. We knew when the COVID governors started trying to change elections and did, and we were on top of that in real time when no one else even knew what was going on. We were sounding those alarms. And then when legislatures started to come in and try to make those adjustments, we were all over that in all kinds of states.
I can remember being in studio of one of the largest talk stations in the Midwest on what was supposed to be a primary night in 2020 in Ohio, March 17th, 2020. And it wasn't held. It was shut down.
The governor arbitrarily said, because I say so, we are going to not have an election because I think it's too dangerous. Now, he blamed it on the Department of Health, but it was his directive.
His directive. And he tried for it not to be his directive because he went to a judge first.
Yeah, he said,
"Excuse me, Judge,
could you please?
Yeah, could you do my dirty work?"
I'd like to sue myself, and so that you can prove that I have the right to do this. And the judge said, "See you later. Get out. Take that out of here." Okay. So we watched what happened in COVID. We also watched the way that legislatures illegally changed federal election laws against the Constitution. And the Trump campaign waited way too long to catch on to that and way too long to do anything more than talk about it. Because if they had gone and done litigation back in April and May when it was going on, they might have had a chance to have a run at the Supreme Court and an honest conversation, and they probably would have won. But by the time they got there, remember what we said about all election law has a time clock? By the time they got there, it was too late. You were going to ask the court to overturn an election. They're not going to do that.
And there's nothing that the left wants more than the right to keep trying to talk about 2020 and what happened in 2020 right now.
So we don't use the terms the 2020 election was stolen because, again, if you don't understand election law and how it works and how people can evade different pieces and processes and still be technically within the law, you can't say it was stolen.
And remember, when people used that language, you saw Georgia soon thereafter lose 2 Republican senators from the U.S. Senate in the same election that another statewide Republican won.
Part of that reason is because people started a fight using language that seemed to make sense. But when the people who really knew how the game gets played started responding, saying, "Excuse me, show me the fraud." And they would talk about drop boxes and this and that. I said, no, show me the fraud. Show me where somebody showed up claiming to be someone that they weren't and voted. Well, we don't have that. See, I told you there was no fraud. In other words, you walked right into the trap with the people who knew how the words worked in the time frame, making allegations. So you're basically in a boxing match leading with your face, and they're beating the tar out of you to the point where at the end of it, all you can do is shout louder. This is complicated. And there were exploitations being done. And there were cases that could have been brought. But you've got to play the game according to the rules if you're going to expose the whole process. And the train was moving so fast that nobody caught up to it. That's why we're talking now, before a single vote's cast, to make sure that people understand we've got so many things hanging by a thread right now in this election that when it comes to this time around, we might be talking here at these microphones 5 days after the election, still not knowing what Pennsylvania decided.
And we may be talking about how state legislatures 5 days after the election need to be passing election laws in regards to 2026 and 2028.
Yep. And to be fair, some of those laws have been changed in the last 4 years.
A lot of them have been changed.
A lot of things. And people are not going to be caught sleeping this time leading up to the election. That's all different. The climate's different.
It is indeed. So we've got hope and progress, but we got change that's ahead, Wayne, and we still hold the same idea. We need to change our minds about this and simplify it because it's got too complicated.
Hey, just 30 seconds left, but you didn't ask me to ask this, but I want to go back to ivoters.com. How in the world do we pay for this?
Americans are wonderful people. We love being American. And part of being American means we don't pay for electoral information. We expect it to be given to us. And okay, that's a reasonable expectation. We've lived with it for decades. Nobody's trying to change that. So it's paid for by charitable contributions. And very rarely does anyone who uses the site offer to pay anything, and we don't even solicit it. I mean, we invite you, but there's like no cost connected to it. It's because decent people who really believe in honest, responsible citizenship say, we'll help you with the millions of dollars it takes, and it has been millions of dollars over the years, to be able to provide that service free of charge so that it can remain nonpartisan.
There you have it. Thanks for listening to The Public Square.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.